Mind the Flowers. Written by S.B. Dawning.
Demons don't care. Martin Andrews looked up from his cell phone at the old black man sitting on the bench nearby. "Excuse me?" Martin asked politely. He was pretty sure the old man had been talking to himself and hadn't meant to be overheard. Maybe he had dementia or Alzheimer's. "I said demons don't care." The old man's milky white eyes turned to stare at nothing in Martin's general direction. The man was blind. He probably hadn't even known Martin was there until he had spoken. "They tell you all kinds of lies, lead you down a path that you think you want to go, and then leave you there in the darkest hole you ever did visit." "You're probably right," Martin replied, perplexed. The old man had interrupted his thoughts. The small-town atmosphere of this place had taken Martin back to his younger days, back to when he had been growing up in a town almost exactly like this. He was missing home more and more these days, not just the place, but the people. People he couldn't see again. People he had been very close to, like his grandpa. It had been a long time since his grandpa had died, but it still brought a bittersweet ache to his heart when he thought of it. "I know I'm right," the old man chuckled to himself. "Seen 'em ruin a lot of lives, figuratively speaking, mind you." Martin shook his head and started to turn back to the tour map on his phone. "Heh, you must think I'm crazy," the old man smiled. "I was just ruminating on Sunday's service. Sometimes it just spills right out of my mouth before I can stop it." "Not at all," Martin lied. The old man seemed harmless enough. "What's a white boy like you doing sitting around a street corner in Selma, Alabama, anyway?" There was no malice in the old man's voice. It was just a simple question brought on by curiosity. "I was just looking around the..." Martin's gaze snapped back up to the man. Those white eyes still stared off into space, seeing nothing and everything all at the same time. "Now just how do you know I'm white, old-timer?" "You got white just dripping off your voice." "Well, ain't that kind of a reverse racial comment?" Martin didn't consider himself racial. He judged a man by his actions, not by the color of his skin. Nowadays, that kind of talk could get you into a lot of trouble. It didn't seem to bother this old man, though. "Boy," the man leaned forward as if he were about to impart some great secret with him, "ain't no such thing as reverse racism. They just racism, pure and simple. Too many folks think they can change a dog into a cat just by saying it's a cat nowadays." "I totally agree," Martin said, grinning. He looked closely at the old man. The phrase sounded a lot like something his grandpa would have said, and it had set up a yearning in Martin just to sit and talk with him a while. He couldn't very well do that, so visiting here with this man might be close enough. "You mind if I sit, Mr. Percy DeShaw? You can just call me Percy, though." "No, sir, go right ahead and flop your fanny on down. I'd be glad of the company, too." "Nice to meet you, Percy. I am Martin Andrews, and to answer your rather racial comment, I'm actually looking for a specific type of place. You see, I'm a location scout for a small cinematic company." "You mean moving pictures type cinema?" "That's the kind." Never seen one." Percy chuckled, and Martin couldn't help but grin. Men capable of such humor were few and far between. This Percy DeShaw was definitely unique, and he was beginning to like the old coot. "What kind of place you looking for?" "I'm not really sure. It's not so much the look as the feel that matters." "Now that I might be able to help you with. What kind of picture is it?" "It's a horror-type movie. Monsters, zombies. Oh, Lord. That's all we need is another one of those monster movies. Why can't you folk make some good movies for a change? Movies about hope, strength, loyalty. You people are what's rotting the minds of all these young'uns these days." "Easy, Mr. DeShaw." "Percy, I just find them the places to shoot their movies. That was the feel I was talking about anyway." "What kind?" "That hope, strength, and loyalty feel. You spoke it perfectly. This is going to be the climax of the movie where the good guys face off against the bad guys. We need a setting that is going to convey those feelings you just mentioned in the story." "You can put that on one of those old horror movies?" Martin nodded. That seemed to sway the old man. Even so, he remained silent for several long minutes before talking again. When he did, his voice was thick with emotion. Not so much that it would choke out what he was saying, but traces of it laced his every word. The only reason I hesitate is because I don't want any of these places junked up. I know how most big city types are. They breeze in, leach all the good out of the place, and then breeze on out with an area thought to what they did to the place they leeching on. I don't reckon I could do nothing to stop your movie from coming through. Just mind the flowers, boy. They's been trampled enough around here, and they just starting to get beautiful again. Martin nodded and then blushed, really realizing Mr. Deshawn couldn't see him. He knew Mr. Deshawn wasn't talking about flowers as much as he was talking about the spirit of Selma. I understand. Really, there isn't a guarantee they will want to film here even if I recommend it. Percy was quiet for a few more minutes, wrestling with his doubts. He was quiet long enough to make Martin uncomfortable. When the old man started talking again, Martin was glad he had stayed. Well, Mr. Andrews, everywhere you look here in Selma speaks of just that. There's a bridge right down the street here. It's named the Edmund Pettus Bridge. You may have heard of it. It ain't much to look at. It's just a big old concrete bridge that arcs across the Alabama River. But when you say the name to someone who knows the history, someone who knows the pain and the suffering ground into that concrete with blood, sweat, and tears, it means so much more. I don't think a bridge scene would work, Martin said, scanning the old notes on his cell phone to give Mr. Deshaw a moment to collect his composure. Then there's the Live Oak Cemetery. It's beautiful, they tell me. I ain't never seen it with these old worthless eyes, but I have felt as I walked through there. There's a quiet dignity about the place, a peaceful serenity that lets you know a soul has found rest there. I sometimes go there just to remind me that there's more to life than just rush and tumble of today. That might be promising. I kind of doubt peace and rest is what the director wants, but it sounds like a place I don't want to miss out on. I'll check it out anyway. Any place else? Lots of places. That strength we was talking about is put on display down at the old rail museum. The old depot museum is its official title, if you need to look it up. Lots of history all piled together in that one building. I'm not so sure you can capture that in a picture, though. Mr. Deshawn thought for a few more heartbeats. Martin waited patiently, resting in the familiarity of it all. He had done all this with his grandpa so many times he couldn't count, and the feeling brought a smile to his lips. If and it's a monster movie, you might want to go and check out old Cahaba. A lot of memories still wandering about that place pretending to be ghosts. It's a monster movie, not much call for ghosts, I don't think. It's worth a look, though. Well, I don't think Selma's what you're looking for. Not for a horror movie. But if and you do decide to bring your people in here, you be respectful. Mind the flowers. I will. My grandpa always taught me to be respectful, Mr. Deshawn. It's just Percy, and you keep on doing that, and he'll be proud of you. Percy, and thank you for all your help. I don't know if you're welcome or not. Depends on what comes of it. But there it is. Martin smiled, still lost in the nostalgia of it all. Goodbye, Mr. Percy. Martin reluctantly stood up and turned to go. He'd been enjoying sitting here and talking with this man. Been like coming home again, even though he had never been here before. He knew he wasn't going to be recommending Selma to the director, not because he hadn't liked the sleepy little town, but because he had. It deserved to be the centerpiece of an epic movie of hope, strength, and inspiration, not some B-flick horror film. Maybe he could find one for it. Goodbye, Stringy. The words were said casually enough that Martin was 6 steps away before they sank in. Stringy had been the nickname his grandpa had called him. No one had called Martin that since he had passed away. He hadn't even realized how much he had missed hearing it. Tears filled his eyes as he tried to decide what to do. He wanted very badly to turn around and find his grandpa sitting there where Percy Deshawn had been sitting, but at the same time he was afraid to. Mustering his courage, Martin took a deep breath and slowly turned around. There behind him was an empty wooden bench. As Martin stared at it, a cool breeze brushed by him. It brought with it a feeling of reassurance and peace, reminding him of the old man's description of the cemetery. Got it. Came his grandpa's disembodied voice from somewhere behind him. Martin didn't have to turn this time. He knew no one would be there. His grandfather had stopped by to say hello, and that was all. One more phrase followed Martin on his way out of Selma. It echoed on the wind. Mind the flowers.